Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, the show where, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And UFC Noche is this week, and as you can tell, I am joined by my co-host, El Lucha Libre, Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
We've got a stacked UFC Noche card taking place in San Antonio, Texas. 14 fights to deliver to you here on the Ground and Pound podcast. And we're going to kick things off in the early prelim opener of Rodrigo Cesar taking on Danilo Donchenko. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering that name. Carlos, who you got in this one?
Yep. So this is the Ultimate Fighter season 33 finale that got pushed back. So it was a good show. These two guys are animals, but I'm gonna go with Daniil Donchenko in this one. I'm taking Donchenko because he's got good takedown defense, very physical, very imposing, very sharp movements with his striking, sharp in and out, very quick, very explosive. Um, I like Rodrigo. I think he's good. He's a tough kid. You know, he likes to get in your face, wants to get this to the ground. For him, you know, he should get this to the ground. I don't think he can stand in the pocket with Donchenko, and the way he moves in and out, I don't think he's going to be able to time it enough because his stand up doesn't really add up to Donchenko coming from I think it's Tiger Muay Thai, and I have seen some fights where he's actually submitted some guys before, so he does have a knowledge of the ground. I believe Sezinando's ground game is probably a little bit more like, you know, of a higher pedigree, but Tiger Muay Thai is not going to send any type of bum out there. They're going to have some killers. Obviously, they have plenty of killers in that camp for him to work with, and he's a teacher out there. So I'm going to go with him because he's got sharp Muay Thai striking. He does tend to get tired in the second round because he comes out pretty hard in the first, but he actually does get a second win. Sezinando, I'm not sure how his cardio is going to hold up once he starts taking those shots in the second round because he also does get tired because he comes out and he throws bombs too. Not the most technical guy, throws some looping shots, doesn't have the wrestling to get it to the ground right away. And I feel like Donchenko has the wrestling to keep it off the mat, so I'm going with him.
Yeah, like Carlos mentioned, the Ultimate Fighter finale here. Both guys, Daniel Cormier's team, both representing the DC team, and two for Danilo here. Donchenko, I was impressed with him when you watch his fights. He likes to really sit down on his punches. I love the body work. I love the tight hooks that he throws. He'll rip to the body with the left hook, come upstairs with the right hook. I was impressed with him. You can tell he can really sit down on his punches. Good takedown defense. Haven't seen too much in the way of grappling overall for him. And the guy loves elbows, whether he can, crash the pocket with an elbow, which is, I think, a really underutilized tool inside of MMA. When you get a guy that, wants to box with you, you crash the pocket with an elbow. It can sometimes really catch a guy off guard. If he gets into the clinch, he wants to smash you with elbows as well. This guy just looks to do damage constantly. And to me, when you look at Sezinando, is that how you pronounce it? The guy tends to have a habit of loading up on his shots. He will look to throw power in all of his shots. Does carry power. However, I think at times, he's loading up from so far out. A guy who wants to level change, the option is there because he is literally looking to throw power all the time. He doesn't look to touch. And I think that when both of these guys kind of meet in the center and throw down, I actually give the power edge and the technique probably to Donchenko in itself. So the only real path to victory I see here for Rodrigo is to look to get this fight to the ground, like Carlos had already mentioned. He does have good takedown defense himself, but I just don't think that he has the wrestling to get Donchenko to the ground. He can beat guys up with ground and pound. He does a good job of really, landing elbows, posturing up when he gets into dominant positions. The guy has good heavy top pressure. I just think in this matchup against Danilo here, it's going to come down to the striking. Donchenko's going to stuff any takedowns, and it's really just going to come down to the fact that one guy carries power but also knows how to, really time those shots, whereas Sezinando really just loads up and doesn't time his shots very well. So 2 for Donchenko here for the Ultimate Fighter finale. And next up, we have Alice Pereira, the 19-year-old here, stepping in, the sister of Alex Pereira, taking on Montserrat Rendon. I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
Well, we start. Is that Pereira's sister?
Yeah, that's what I read. It's the younger
Oh,
sister of Alex Pereira.
oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know it was. All right. Um, I'm going with Pereira in this one anyway. Pereira, she's a good prospect. She can hit pretty good, willing to throw. Gets a little wild at times, but once she gets somebody to the ground, she has good top pressure. She has nice control over them. Loves to throw down some ground and pound while she's on top. Rendon, when it comes to her striking, she's game. She's ready to get in the mix, but she doesn't really have like an offense that's gonna make you think twice about stepping in her face, in the pocket. And once she gets you to the ground, because I think that's where she wants to take this fight. But she doesn't really have a way to get you down there. Like that's the problem is like her takedowns are pretty basic. But if she had any bit of wrestling, I would say this fight would get to the ground. But she doesn't have that option. So I don't know how she's going to get it to the ground. And once she does get to the ground, she's probably going to be the one on her back. So uh, the other thing that's very interesting about this is in her last fight, she did have a pretty good stand-up base where she was going against a girl that was a boxer, and she had a pretty good account of herself in that fight, but a little bit of a wardrobe malfunction because she does bring the heavies into the ring. She doesn't have big power, but they were bouncing around all day, and sometimes at the end of the fights, women like to twerk. She had a lot of movement up top, and she wasn't trying to do that on purpose. So hopefully they can take care of that. You know what I mean? So that she doesn't have to keep adjusting throughout the fight. But either way, I'm going with Alice Pereira in this one.
So what you're basically saying is the Venom fight kit just doesn't provide the support that it needs for some of its athletes with, you know, the breastises is basically what you're trying to say, Carlos. There.
Yes,
Um,
and I didn't really think that was going to be a problem, but since like I said, like I didn't really pay attention to it that much, and then I was watching some video and I saw a little dancing up top, and I was like, those heavies are flying all over the place. Thought we are going to get one of them popping out, cause a distraction, and she can land a combo, but I don't know.
yeah.
Nothing like that happened for her.
It's a distraction for tape study, and it's a distraction for her when she's fighting. But when we talk about Alice Pereira here, obviously, as I mentioned, the younger sister of Alex Pereira. First of all, we got to talk about it. Talk about DEI hire. Am I right, guys? Like, it's not about, what you know. It's about who you know. Your older brother's the star in the UFC. You just automatically get in at 19, Tall, rangy striker, carries a decent amount of power, throws nice straight shots. She does time her punches very well. Haven't necessarily seen a whole lot out of her in terms of level of competition. That's what kind of worries me here. 5-0, but when you look at those people that she's fighting, it's the bottom of the barrel that you could find of anybody. Two of those fights as well on Tapology have been labeled as, like the opponents just shown up and basically been told to lose. It's kind of like one of those things where it's been flagged on Tapology. I know that you guys know what I'm talking about. When she does get into the clinch, she does have a body lock trip takedown. I've seen her get on top and look to land ground and pound. But it just kind of has me a little bit spooked here. And when you talk about Rendon, this is basically striker grappler. One woman, I question whether she's ever really trained a whole lot of jiu-jitsu in her life. She looks like she just gets into, half guard and just, lays there and throws ground and pound in Pereira. Then you've got Rendon, who looks like she's never, had a striking lesson in her life. She looks like she's terrible on the feet. She's very, very hittable, 36 years old. She's a 12-time Mexican national jiu-jitsu champion. She's also a jiu-jitsu purple belt, which kind of threw me off a little bit. I was expecting maybe a black belt, considering she's 12-time Mexican national champion. And when you watch her get to the ground, the jiu-jitsu didn't really stand out too much to me. Her striking's awful. I think on the feet, Pereira can definitely put her out. I am going to pick Pereira here, but I would not be surprised if Rendon here shows an ability to get the fight to the ground, shows an ability to use, the body lock trips, just shows an ability to show that Pereira just isn't actually a good fighter at all, and that she's a DEI hire here. I wouldn't be surprised in women's MMA, especially that you got Rendon here as a reasonable underdog, that she pulls off an upset using her ground game here, getting into the body lock trip, takedown, top control. and using her jiu-jitsu. But I'm going to say that Pereira finds the knockout. I think that Rendon's far too hittable, and I think that the judges are going to side with the damage and the striking here at Pereira. And next up, we have Alessandro Costa taking on Alden Coria, and I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
In this fight, I actually went with Alden Coria, okay, and or Coria, however you say it. Costa's a much faster, quicker fighter out of the two. Yet he does get hurt against like much slicker type strikers, and uh, I feel that Korea is probably just a little bit more tactical than Costa in his striking. He's patient, waits to counter, and is looking for openings off of his jab and off of his foot movement. So uh, his opponent's movement, however he gets the opening, if he sees a hand drop, he goes for it. So I like that. I like how he is pretty patient on it. I'm going to go with Korea because he's kind of relaxed. Same thing I said. He looks for opening and he kind of times his opponents pretty well. And Costa, he can take it to the ground if he'd like to. He could use that where he doesn't really like to counterfight. He's not very tactical, but he throws punches and bunches. And if he does that, it probably could be enough to fluster Coria. But or take him to the ground, see if you have success there. I'm going to go with Coria just because I feel that as Costa, even though he doesn't fade in the fights, I feel that sometimes, even though he's the faster guy, people tend to get the better of him because they're looking for his openings and they're looking to time him. So I think Coria is going to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, when I saw this fight got announced, Korea obviously taking this fight on somewhat short notice, replacing Edgar Chavez. I actually thought to myself, oh, Costa's going to be able to run through this guy, short notice. When you watch tape on Korea, he's actually not bad. Obviously, a step up in competition here compared to people that he's fought over on the regional scene. But he's actually a training partner of Joshua Van, which I think is a great training partner to have in any circumstance here with the run that he's been on. Training over at Daniil Pineda's gym over in Texas, so not a huge amount of travel for him. This is his home state that he's fighting in. And he's a very instinctive grappler and wrestler. I like his level changes. He does a really good job of sometimes when he gets hurt, he's able to chain wrestle and really get on top and change the direction of where the fight's going. He has a decent amount of power in the hands. I think that Costa's definitely the better athlete out of the two. I just think that with the thing here with Korea that really impressed me was even though he is fighting on the regional scene, you could see that there is talent there. You can see that he has ability. And I was expecting a lot less from him, if I'm being really honest. When it comes to the striking, I think Costa has the advantage. However, Costa at times can be a little bit of a slow starter. He does have power in the hands, likes to throw the overhand, a couple of nice hooks. Doesn't necessarily fight behind the jab as much as I would like from him. But obviously a known entity inside the UFC at this point. Losing to Amir Albazi and Steve Erceg, there's no shame in that. Training partner of Diego Lopes and Alexa Grasso there at Team Lobo. He's got good jiu-jitsu, but the thing that kind of has me a little bit spooked here is that now that Costa's not got this named UFC fighter and, Korea's coming in on short notice, how does that kind of affect him with the slow start? Does Korea kind of set a pace here and kind of give Costa a lot to kind of think about and kind of overwhelm him early here? I think Korea can definitely set a pace with the grappling. I'm going to pick Costa. I'm going to lean to Costa. I was initially a lot more confident in him coming in. I've always been very high on Alessandro Costa. I thought that he's very talented, just not necessarily put it all together. Obviously, training with the former champion Diego Lopes is definitely rubbing off on him. But to me, I was going to be a lot more confident in Costa here. But Korea's not bad from what I've seen on tape. So going to lean to Costa, but wouldn't be surprised if Korea pulls off the upset. And obviously, Carlos picked him, so he sees a lot of the same here with Korea. And next up, we have Zach Reese taking on Sedriques Dumas. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
I'm going to go with Zach Reese in this one. I just feel Reese is probably, because he's usually a fast starter, and he's probably going to find the opening on Dumas pretty early. And once he gets him hurt, he's probably just going to, swarm him and try to get him out of there. I I don't really see Dumas recovering or regathering himself, getting back in the fight because usually once he gets hurt, he gets stopped. But I don't know. There's not too many things that are very. I don't know. There's really nothing too good to talk about when it comes to Dumas. I mean, he's long, he's tall for the weight class. He's had some success in fights, but against fighters that he should beat. And I feel that him and Zach Reese are kind of at the same level where they're not beating anyone in the not even the upper echelon, but anybody those mid tier where they're going to move up. They're just kind of staying around the bottom, like around the bottom, a little higher than that. And they're losing to those guys that have just a little bit more to offer. And I just feel Zach Reese has just that little bit more to make this happen. And I think he just finished fighting like a 3-round fight going to decision. And I think he got it, if I remember that.
Hmm.
And that was something that he was very happy about, that he had the cardio to make it in that fight. So I think maybe with that newfound confidence, he probably applies the pressure a little earlier. Maybe he's starting to find a way to patiently look for openings in his fights and then explode, which would be perfect because coming out hard is great. You know what I mean? It's good, but you don't get very far with that type of approach. But I'm still taking Zach Reese.
Yeah, two for Zach Reese here. I've never thought that Dumas is anything special. Dumas really just looks to kind of be that sort of technical kickboxer where he's really outclassed, picked up the sport too late. The grappling's not really there. And like Carlos mentioned, that all three of his losses he's been finished in. I think Zach Reese is a very much a natural finisher, has power in the hands, can be a little bit stiff in there when it comes to the striking, can leave his chin up in the air with tall man syndrome, obviously at 6'4". Would Reese does decide to either take this fight to the ground or Dumas does. He has a nice guillotine. Obviously, very long-limbed as well. He could throw up triangles and throw up arm bars off of his back. I think in terms of the grappling here, I think that Reese, if he does decide to grapple, he would be levels above Dumas. We've seen in previous fights with Dumas that he just doesn't really have the grappling because it's something that he's not picked up early enough in the sport, and guys that have been doing it a lot longer than him, they can dominate him in that department. So I think that would be a good path to victory here. If Reese wants to keep it on the feet, he does have the height and reach advantage. He does have the more power or the more versatility in the way that he strikes. I think Dumas is a little bit safe on the feet. I like Reese wherever this fight goes. My only real concern here is that Dumas kind of pressures him early and Reese leaves his chin up in the air. But this is one I feel like Zach Reese should really get done here. Obviously, like Carlos mentioned, he did fight Dusko Todorovic, went 3 rounds with him, which is a much tougher opponent here than a guy in Dumas who gets finished in all of his losses. I think Zach Reese is going to get back here and get back in the finishing column and get this one done inside the distance. So give me Zach Reese here. And next up, we have Jesus Aguilar taking on Luis Gurule. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
I went with Gurule in this one.
Gurule, yeah.
Aguilar's a good grappler. He incorporates that in his fights whenever he can. Not the most technical striker, but his game, and he loves ripping kicks and overhands in his fights. I just feel Gurule is stronger, bigger puncher, the better wrestler. And I think he's a little bit more imposing. And I think that he's just going to kind of bully Aguilar and either get the decision or he might find a finish. I'm not too sure because, there's sometimes where Gurule is actually just fighting and being technical, and then he'll land a bomb and he'll get you out of there. So I'm going to go with Gurule. I think that he kind of can dominate in the stand-up, and I think that even though Aguilar probably has the speed advantage in this one, Gurule does time his shots very well, and I think he's going to be able to control Aguilar on the ground. I think he's going to be able to control him standing up. So I'm going with Gurule.
I'm not going to lie, ladies and gentlemen. I almost thought about making this one dog of the week, but I'm going to side with Jesus Aguilar here. Not the dog of the week later on. It's going to be coming, but Aguilar's got a nasty guillotine here, and I think he might get another one. I got a feeling here. Obviously, losing to Estevam and Tatsuro Taira, no shame in losing to either of those opponents. I think he's got decent power in the hands for being a little bit undersized for this division. And obviously, when it comes to the grappling, he does a good job of cinching up his guillotine, which is his main weapon. He's got a nice overhand right as well that he uses to set up his wrestling. He's not scared to mix in the takedowns and kind of scramble and get people tired, making them wrestle. Obviously, against Estevam in his previous fight, he was known to slow down in fights. I think that Estevam's kind of overtook that hurdle or kind of used that. Stepping stone to be able to make that a strength of his as opposed to a weakness. He used to be a cardio, just fall off a cliff with his cardio, whereas Aguilar can push a pace. We've seen in many of his fights that he does scramble very, very well. And I think that he can really get Luis tired here. When you watch that last fight with Ode Osborne, Luis, he didn't really have a good showing, other than the blasting kicks that he likes to throw from the outside to the head and the body, and the one explosive takedown that he got on Ode Osborne. Who doesn't take down Ode Osborne? I wasn't that impressed. What has he done to be a favorite here over Jesus Aguilar? Jesus Aguilar has fought now 5 times in the UFC, had some victories, only lost to good opponents. Luis does have a Greco-Roman wrestling background, but that's at the lower level, not necessarily at the college level or a high-tier wrestler. I think Aguilar can push a pace here. I think he can make this one gritty in front of a Mexican, dominated crowd and card. I think he's going to have the biggest support here. I could see him maybe losing the first round, winning the second and third, or when Gurule gets tired, he's able to cinch up that guillotine. But give me Jesus Aguilar here to win this one in the scrambles, kind of push a pace, and really just get in the face here of a guy like Gurule, who's not necessarily proven anything to me at this point. And next up, we have Amanda Lemos taking on Tatiana Suarez. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
I went with Tatiana Suarez. Lemos, she's going to have the speed, the agility advantages in this fight. If she could just strike without worrying about the takedown, I think she would have a lot more success. I feel that maybe like for this particular fight, she should have been working a lot more on takedown defense, but she gets where she needs to be to stop the takedowns. It's just getting the rest of her fight out. It's just she needs to unload the knees, the kicks, the punches. And against Jandiroba, like she was so worried about getting taken down, she didn't get off at all in that fight. And I feel that that's going to be the exact same thing in this one, because no matter how much you train takedown defense, I just feel that Suarez's takedown defense is probably going to be a little bit too much. You're going to be working from behind too much. I think against Jandiroba, you had a chance to stop it, but against Suarez, that's her bread and butter wrestling. She's going to take you down at some point. And I just see it being, she's going to take her down, little ground and pound, get back up, take her down, get her down, little ground and pound, back up, possibly a submission now. So Suarez it is.
Yeah, very simple breakdown here for me. This is striker versus grappler. We all know with Tatiana Suarez what she looks to do. She looks to implement the wrestling. She is a very, very good credentialed wrestler, obviously not having that success in her previous fight against the champ. In Zhang Wei Li, and we've seen with Lemos that obviously she can still, carry pop into her late 30s, early, coming up to her 40s. She was obviously able to come off the win there against Lucindo, I believe it was, and we've seen with her in the past that the one probability that we know is or one factor that's going to be in her fights is that she can't defend takedowns. She's shown that she can wrestle against people that don't have the wrestling and the pedigree chops of Tatiana Suarez. So this fight really just comes down to can Lemos land a bomb. Can she land some sort of uppercut or knee as Suarez comes in? If not, she's going to get taken down time and time again, like Carlos said. And I could definitely see Suarez here, kind of getting towards a late submission victory or a late ground and pound victory here. But simple breakdown for me. I think Suarez gets the takedowns. I think she dominates on top. She wears down Lemos. Lemos is going to have to worry about those takedowns once she gets taken down in the first round. I think her striking goes away because she knows if she loads up on any shot, she's going to get the level change come. And she's going to be so worried about it. It's going to be rinse and repeat. Tatiana Suarez all day here. Late stoppage, I'm going to say, or late, or decision here. But I think she might get the stoppage. And next up, we have Joaquim Silva taking on Claudio Puelles. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
In this one, I'm taking Claudio Puelles in this one. Like we had said before we started, I think Joaquim Silva's built like a titan. He's very heavily muscled for the weight class. And somebody like that you would expect to come out and have the cardio and the power to impose himself on his opponents. And when you watch his fights, there's a lot of times where he's very much like low volume. And for some reason, I just feel it's the fact that, maybe there's a lot of weight to cut for him, like, to get down to that. But he, you expect him to have that big power, but he does land on people, and it doesn't have the effect you'd expect it to have all the time. He does have pretty good takedown defense when he's fresh, but as the fight goes on, the takedown defense starts to go. The sprawl stops like coming every now and again. He doesn't down block as effectively as he would in the first round or midway through the second. And I just feel that the pressure that Puelles is going to put on him, like he's just going to continuously keep going for those takedowns. Now, his stand up is where Silva should have the advantage because Puelles is not that impressive on the feet. But he does just find a way to keep sneaking in and trying to get that takedown over and over again, getting you up against the cage. And I just feel over time that's going to get Silva a little tired. And you'll start to see the tide turn in the middle, maybe around 2. And it's probably going to go.
Yeah, this is probably my least confident fight on this whole entire card, if I'm being really honest with everybody here. Puelles to me is a guy who is very, very untrustworthy. If you're picking him, I find it very difficult to trust the guy. Obviously, great with it rolling for knee bars and leg locks and things like that. The guy has great jiu-jitsu, but we saw in that Dan Hooker fight that, when it comes to the striking, it is very, very basic. Obviously shines on the ground, looks very, very comfortable there, but doesn't necessarily always have the means to be able to get the fight to the ground. And to me, he's one of these guys that I don't want to say he's a quitter. The guy is obviously very tough. He's a decent fighter overall. I enjoy watching this guy fight. It's just one of these things where I look at him and I just go, if he can't kind of have his way, he has to be the hammer. He cannot be the nail. And I just worry that, if Silva does land one big shot, what is Puelles going to look like? Puelles hasn't fought since February of last year as well. I watched an interview where he talked about, really struggling mentally to overcome that loss that he had against Dan Hooker. And that kind of worries me a little bit. However, when we talk about Joaquim Silva, like Carlos mentioned, he's very, very low output, very, very, muscular build, but he's not very fast, twitch, and explosive. He really just likes to load up on the right hand. He lets people walk him down. He'll back up against the fence. He'll kind of just stand there and cock his right hand and basically say, like, okay, throw, and I'll see if I can land on you, and you're going to be worried about my power. But you don't see those flash knockouts or knockdowns from Silva, especially you look at his physique and think, he's going to be able to knock guys down with big punches, but you don't necessarily see it. His notable win recently is against Clay Guida, a 43-year-old that's basically retired and not won a fight in 3 fights, So this fight really has me puzzled. I am going to pick Silva for the only reason that I just don't trust Puelles. But I do think that Silva has a little bit more on the feet to give Puelles problems. However, Puelles, like Carlos said, could definitely implement a wrestle-heavy game plan here and get takedowns. But I'm going to lean to Silva here just to get it done with the striking and just have the more impactful moments. But like I said, not confident at all. And next up, we have Jose Medina, Carlos's favorite fighter, taking on Dusko Todorovic. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm not being biased. If he could beat Todorovic, I would say Medina all day, but I'm going with Todorovic in this. Obviously, I feel that he's got better skills anywhere in any department, except for toughness. Medina does have the ability to take a shot. His ability to give a shot is not as good as his ability to take one. And he doesn't hit the way that Dusko does. Now, Dusko's not going to get him out of there, but mentally, this guy keep pursuing Todorovic. Is that going to get him tired? Because he will fatigue if you keep pressing him. But I feel that Todorovic should probably get this fight to the ground. I haven't seen a lot of Medina on the ground, so I don't know if Todorovic gets him down, will he be able to get back up? But I do know that once this is on the ground, Todorovic would probably be a little bit more comfortable, not get his gas. So I'm going to go with Dusko in this one.
Yeah, give me Todorovic here. I mean, Jose Medina, the human punching bag, like Carlos said, it's pretty simple here. Feels like a get right spot. This feels like a layup here for Todorovic. But one thing I will say is Todorovic's only wins that you can actually note are against Marky Patolo, and Jordan Wright. Not necessarily the best, you know, guys to be getting wins against. Obviously, losing to Christian Leroy Duncan due to a knee injury, losing to Malik, losing to Zach Reese 3 in a row. So he's lucky not to be cut, let's put it that way. And when you look at Medina, one thing, like Carlos said, he does have a lot of toughness. I don't think he's going to have a lot here for Todorovic to really give him a whole lot of adversity to have to worry about. Obviously, Zach Reese, Malik, and Christian Leroy Duncan possess a lot more power, a lot more difficulty for Todorovic that he has to worry about. I just think that Todorovic has to worry about really just punching himself out here. Just be technical, just pick the shots. Don't go into all the antics that Medina sticking his tongue out saying that doesn't hurt and overthrowing and getting caught. This really just feels like a layup and a get right spot here for Dusko Todorovic. He does have power in the hands. He can put people out. He does have grappling, like Carlos mentioned as well. I do think that would be a good path to victory, like Carlos said, to get Medina to the ground and implement his grappling. But why are we keeping Medina around? For fights like this, to get right spot and just give somebody an opportunity to beat up and potentially get a finish here, or at least be some sort of an entertaining fight on a UFC card here. I don't know why we're even keeping Todorovic around as a 3-fight losing streak, but hey, 7-1 for Budai. He gets cut, but we keep some of these guys around. But I digress. Give me Todorovic here to get this one done with the Homer Simpson method. And next up, we have Quang Lee taking on Santiago Luna. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I went with Santiago Luna in this one, just with his wrestling pedigree. I feel like he's going to be able to obviously dictate where this fight's going to take place. Lee's stand-up looks pretty good. He looked like he's gotten a lot better over the time being too, since he's been in the UFC. And I feel that Lee, he does get in some wild exchanges. He does stay busy enough to keep opponents back. He has good ability on the ground as well, but I feel that he's not going to be able to keep defending Luna's takedown. His striking is still improving, you know what I mean? So I mean he'll be able to throw a shot or two, but that's only just to be able to get him up against the cage or get him to the ground. And he could be dangerous standing up too if he catches you with one of those wild overhands. But for the most part, I would say in this fight for him, if he were just to stick to his wrestling, get him down, he's going to have a lot of success against Lee. So I'm going to go with Luna to wrestle him up, get him on the ground, and hopefully implement some ground and pound, look for a submission.
Yeah, Quang Lee had a decent performance in his last fight. Gasto Bolaños, obviously no slouch on the feet. So Lee pressured him, took him down, was able to take his back and choke him out. So a good performance there. Lee does do a good job of implementing his boxing approach to get himself into the clinch and get takedowns. But I really think this fight really just comes down to Luna's ability to have a little bit more success, not only on the feet, but also on the ground. Like Carlos said, I think both guys can grapple. I think that really this comes down to the fact that Luna is a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? He's probably going to be better at scrambling. I think that he's going to have the better jiu-jitsu overall. And I do think that Luna's striking here is probably going to be much better than Lee's. I think he's much more technical. I think he parries a little bit more pop as well. He will throw straight shots, which will serve him well, not to overextend here to open up the takedowns for Lee. Obviously, making his UFC debut at 21 on a UFC Noche card as a Mexican could definitely get to his head a little bit. He can be a little bit wild and a little bit aggressive, but he is a much younger, more athletic fighter, and I think that will serve him well here against Quang Lee. We've seen in the past that Lee likes to be able to take the back, but I think if that's not there and this comes down to the striking, I think that Luna's going to have all the success he needs on the feet. I think if Lee starts to shoot desperate takedowns, that's going to help Luna to really just to be able to time shots that could catch Lee on the feet. And I think if it comes down to the scrambling, I think the younger fighter here with the more energy, the better cardio in Luna is going to have more success here. I like this fight wherever it goes for Luna. And even as a UFC debutant here, as long as he comes in shape, which I think he will, I think he'll have success here wherever the fight goes. And next up, we have Diego Ferreira taking on Alexander Hernandez. I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
See, this is another one where I felt like not as confident in it. You know what I mean? This is one of those ones, but I'm gonna go with it because he's coming off a win and it was a good win. So I'm gonna go with Hernandez. Um, I'm not the biggest fan of Hernandez, but um, striking, getting a little bit better. Um, he can always take you down. He can control you down there, and I don't know what Ferreira. This is kind of what makes me think about it. He's 40 years old. If Hernandez pushes the pace on the ground with the wrestling, is Ferreira going to be able to keep up with that? Even in the stand up, it's like if Ferreira wants to throw some bombs, I feel that Hernandez carries the bigger hammers out of the two. So I feel that he's going to be outgunned in a couple different spots here. So that's why I'm taking it. Ferreira, he can come out and be a world beater, or he can come out and be a punching bag. So you just don't know what you're going to get from him every now and again. So, and the same goes with Hernandez. Sometimes, like I expected him to lose his last fight, and he came out with that KO. So I'm going to go with him on this one.
Diego Ferreira, dog of the week. Yes, we're picking a 40-year-old for the dog of the week. It's no secret. But Alex Hernandez, I think the hype coming into this one, obviously him knocking out Chase Hooper as a big underdog. I obviously think that's. I even said to Carlos in that breakdown, I don't trust Chase Hooper's chin. I did think Chase Hooper was going to win that fight, get the fight to the ground, and mix in the grappling. But I was never sold on Chase Hooper, and Hernandez can crack, like Carlos said. He does have a decent amount of pop in his hands, but I think Ferreira hits a little bit harder, and I think that Ferreira, when you look at his recent loss against Grant Dawson, obviously getting out grappled by Grant Dawson is pretty much how a lot of his fights play out. There's no shame in that. Ferreira was able to get a third round ground and pound victory over Rombetsky, which is a great win. He was obviously able to knock out Michael Johnson. And I think that he carries a little bit more pop. What I see in him is a guy that has still, a good amount of not just pop in his hands, but ability to still push a pace and get fights into dangerous positions for him late into second and third rounds. And we've seen with Hernandez in the past that he will slow down as fights go on. He does struggle late into fights. Now, obviously, this move up to 155 has served him well so far, but I think Ferreira can have success here. I wouldn't be surprised if Hernandez wins round one, Ferreira wins round 2 and 3 as Hernandez, kind of gets a little bit tired, and Ferreira takes over. And to me, if you look at the losses of Ferreira as well, Mataus Gamrot, Gregor Gillespie, a split decision against Benil Dariush. These are all top level guys that I think all smoke Alexander Hernandez, excuse me. I think this run of Hernandez comes to an end. If you look at who he's been beating, they've been sort of the bottom of the barrel. They're guys I expected him to beat. I think I picked him in every fight apart from Chase Hooper. Kirk Hollabaugh, Austin Hubbard. These aren't guys that, are well beaters. He's even going to a split decision with Austin Hubbard. When it comes to the technique and the striking, I think both guys carry pop. I give the little bit more of an edge in the power to Ferreira. I think if this comes down to the wrestling, I think Hernandez can't push a pace for 3 rounds with the wrestling. I think if Ferreira, does get taken down in the first, if he does get taken down in the second, he can actually, kind of scramble and mix in the wrestling himself, which we saw in that Rombetsky fight. So give me Diego Ferreira. I think this one is a very back and forth fight. I think that the odds suggest, obviously, it's almost a near pick 'em. Ferreira is like plus 100 right now, dog of the week. We're trusting him this week to get it done. I think it's time to fade Alexander Hernandez here. So give me Ferreira as the dog of the week. And next up, we have Dustin Stoltzfus taking on Kelvin Gastelum. I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. We taking Gastelum here?
Well, this one was actually a tough one because I think Stoltzfus carries like all the physical advantages in terms of reach and height and size, and I know that Kelvin is probably going to have the advantage in the striking. He can wrestle, but he tends to get out wrestled by bigger guys. So does Stoltzfus have enough zip to hurt Kelvin on the feet? And it's not about the zip. It's just the fact that Kelvin just keeps moving. You know what I mean? Like he's always bouncing around in and out. Now there's times where he stops and he gets hit, and I get that. But as he's coming in and out, he also gets hit too, because sometimes he just darts right in. The problem is what's coming at Stolzfus. Is it enough to put him out? Is it enough to hurt him? Is it enough to win the round? I feel that if Stolzfus can smother Gastelum, I don't know if he can get him off because he's had issues with bigger wrestlers, and that's what Stolzfus likes to do. He likes to get you down. He likes to grapple on you, and he likes to lay on top. So it was a tough one to take, but I'm going to go with Gastelum because I feel that he's probably going to be able to stay on the feet, and he's going to most likely punish Stolzfus on the ground. I think there's too much movement for Stolzfus to worry about, and I don't think he's going to get a clean takedown with that. So I'm going with Gastelum.
I don't know. This one was tough, man. I don't necessarily even know how serious Calvin Gastelum takes his career at this point. It's very tough to call. Obviously, him in his previous fight against Joe Pyfer, it was tough to even sort of see whether he really cares that much about the sport. And one thing that we know about Stolzfus is that he's happy to fight for his job. In his previous fight against what's his name, Nursultan Rozaboyev, we saw he had a good showing in that fight. That wasn't necessarily a bad performance. Obviously losing to Rozaboyev, but made it to the judges' scorecards against a very well-rounded finisher that's big for the weight class. He got in his face. He had moments. He got takedowns. He landed big shots. And to me, Calvin Gastelum's one of these guys that he's definitely on the decline in terms of his career, not just mentally, but also physically. The guy is undersized as a middleweight. Stolzfus here going to have the height and reach advantage, which Gastelum gives up in most of his fights. We've seen that Gastelum likes to mix in the wrestling in a lot of his fights, but I think Stolzfus' grappling and wrestling is also good itself. And I think that Stolzfus also carries a decent amount of power here as well. I think he's probably the better athlete, the more explosive athlete, especially early. And I'm going to pick him here just purely because I don't trust Calvin Gastelum. I don't think I've ever picked Dustin Stolzfus in one fight. And not that it even matters, but I just want to point this out that Stolzfus has been win one, lose one, win one, lose one pretty much in his last 5 fights. He just lost to Rozaboyev in a good showing. I wouldn't be surprised here if he gets Calvin Gastelum and just catches him here and ends up just having that on his record as one of his signature wins and goes on to lose to somebody that is nowhere near the level of Calvin Gastelum. But I'm going to pick Stolzfus just because fuck Calvin Gastelum and the weight cuts and all that stuff. It's kind of a joke. I'm kind of done with him. And I think Dustin Stolzfus takes his career a little bit more serious. So give me Stolzfus to get this one done.
I think Stolzfus takes his career serious. I just think that Gastelum went pretty much 3 rounds with Joe Pyfer and getting hit by him. So I'm like, I don't know if there's anything that Stolzfus could throw at him that's going to soften him up. Even though he does come in with his little nuggety center there, I think that he's a little rugged. So how are you going to do it? And I think if he can impose the grappling, that's going to be the issue. But I don't know if he can get it down there because Pyfer, if he were to grapple, probably would have dominated the entire fight. But keeping it on the feet, he allowed for Kelvin to at least look like he was coming back in the fight. But I don't know if Stolzfus can do that on the feet, if he can impose himself on Gastelum. But that's why it was so difficult because I wanted to take Stolzfus so bad, and then at the last second, I'm like, I'm going Gastelum. So.
It is a tough one. I just don't trust Calvin Gastelum, but
Yeah.
I also don't think that Stolzfus is on his level either. So it's going to be interesting to see. And next up, we have Jared Gordon taking on Rafa Garcia. Carlos, who you got in this one?
All right. I'm gonna go with Jared Gordon. I think he's the smarter, slicker fighter. I think he picks better spots to be busy in. I think that he has good striking in the clinch. I think that he's got good movement. Rafa could be a little tight on the feet. It'll take him a little bit probably to get loose, maybe in the second round. But I've seen him tight even in the second round where he doesn't really like get off on his opponent too much either. Um, I think Rafa's more low output, which would also play into Gordon, Jared Gordon's favor. I think that Rafa's always looking for the perfect strike or the perfect takedown, whereas Gordon is going to create the perfect takedown or the perfect opening. And just the experience and the ability. I'm gonna go with Gordon. I think he can get this done, and it's not going to be a knockout or a submission. I just think he's going to best him for 3 rounds.
Yeah, two for Jared Gordon here. I think that Jared Gordon's skill set is probably the kryptonite for Rafa Garcia's skill set here. And Gordon obviously coming off that kind of surprise first round knockout of Thiago Moises. Not necessarily known for the power in his hands, but obviously displayed it in that fight that he can obviously still get it done and get the finish in early in round one. Rafa Garcia to me is a guy that wants to be able to get you to the ground and dominate you with the wrestling. He can put up a pace at times, but in his previous fight, he obviously struggled with that, with the cardio. I don't know if he had a bad weight cut or what it was, but he didn't look that great against Vince Pichel. And Vince Pichel, obviously an older guy, not necessarily known for that much pop in his hands either, but he didn't look great in that fight. And I think if you're struggling with Vince Pichel, to get the fight to the ground and really struggling with a back and forth striking affair in that fight, you're going to struggle with Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon's been shown that he is tough to take down. He's tough to, get to the mat and hold him down. And I think if this one comes down to just a straight up boxing match, Jared Gordon is probably going to be the harder hitter, as shown in his last fight. He's shown that, he can still get it done with the boxing. He's going to have a little bit of a height advantage as well. He's got probably the tougher level of competition on his record as well. Give me Jared Gordon here. I think he stuffs any takedowns that Garcia throws at him. I think on the feet, he's going to have a little bit more crisper, more technique with the hands. And I just don't really see a way that Rafa's going to be able to get this one to the ground repeatedly. And I think on the feet, he's going to be outmatched. So give me Jared Gordon to sprawl and brawl here and keep this one on the feet, win it with the striking. And that brings us to the co-main event here for UFC Noche. And if you're enjoying the content here, hit that like and subscribe button as we break down David Martinez taking on Rob Font. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm going to go with Martinez in this one. Now, I what I like about Martinez is that he's quick, he's in and out, and the factor of that is he likes to inflict damage. Everything he does is punishing. All his strikes are. But what he loves to do is he throws a lot of heavy kicks. He throws a lot, he throws them hard, and he's out of the pocket. So somebody like Font, that's going to be a little bit of an issue where he likes to hold a high guard. Although he's going to have the reach advantage in this fight, and I feel just from all the boxing, he's going to have the timing advantage of when Martinez comes in to look for that opening. What I do feel is somebody like Font should probably in the first round try to get in a clinch situation with Martinez, get him up against the cage, try to get a takedown, anything to weigh on his arms, his legs, his back, make him carry his weight in the backpack position there. Do something, you know what I mean? Just so that when round two starts to come around, he's just a little slower. And round three, he'll be just a little bit slower. Anything to bring him down to your level. And Rob Font has the tools to do that. He can wrestle a little bit. He can grapple. His jiu-jitsu is very good. I just think that Martinez throws a lot of kicks. And he's very quick. He's going to move in and out of that pocket. And he's just going to rip to the leg, come up with some combinations, and he's out. So I'm going to take Martinez in this one. I think he's just going to too much movement, too much volume. Font's going to have to find a way to slow it down. I don't know if he can. So I'm going to go Martinez.
Yeah, clearly, ladies and gentlemen, I drank too many Modelo's in the celebration of this card and doing the graphics because no, Rob Font is not 25 years old. He is 38. He has not gone back in time. The graphics are wrong on the screen. Fucking sue me. I'm actually going to go with Rob Font here. I've been impressed with David Martinez. Obviously, like Carlos mentioned, his main weapon is his kicks, his speed. He likes to do a lot of damage with a lot of his strikes. He's always looking to hurt you. But I think this fight comes down to Rob Font's looked pretty good since his move over to TriStar. Obviously, he's got good boxing. We know he can implement some of the grappling as well. And I think that he implements a similar game plan of what he did to Kyler Phillips. We saw in that fight, he pressures forward heavy, takes away a lot of the kicks here of Martinez, and he just corrals the kicker. He's got the better hands, I think. I think the speed advantage definitely goes to Martinez, but I think Rob's technique, his experience is going to play a factor in this one. I think if he gets takedowns early or at least tries to wrestle early, it might, wear on the gas tank of Martinez, maybe take away some of the pop in his shots. And I think this one will come down to the fact that Martinez's kicks are just going to be taken away from the pressure of Rob Font. Rob needs to be able to move his head, kind of really get in the face here of Martinez and really let his hands go, time a few shots, and maybe, like I said, mix in some grappling here. But I like Rob Font to get this one done. I know that the graphics are wrong, but I think the pick's going to be right. Give me Rob Font here to get this one done against David Martinez, corralling the kicker, using the boxing, and using the wrestling. And that brings us to the main event of the evening. And if you're enjoying the content, you know what to do. Hit that like and subscribe button as we break down Diego Lopes taking on Gene Silva, UFC Noche main event. Carlos, who you got in this Brazilian versus Brazilian showdown?
Well, I went with Gene Silva, okay, Jean Silva. But one of the things that makes me think, and we talked about it earlier, was Mauricio Rufi. I assume, you know what I mean. You're in a gym, and there's all their guys have good striking. Bohalio, he's getting better. You know, didn't have the best performance, but you assume that because they have good takedown defense most of their fights, that their ground ability is going to be pretty solid as well. Silva, haven't seen a lot of him on the ground. You know, he did submit what is his name, Bryce
Bryce
Mitchell,
Mitchell.
and you know he had success on the ground with him. That doesn't mean that you're ready for somebody like Diego Lopes. And if Lopes can get him to the ground, is it going to be like Saint Denis and Rufi? Is he gonna know what to do to get off? Is he gonna know what to do to create space? Is he gonna know what to do to attack Lopez's base so that he can get back to his feet? Those are questions I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. But what I do know is that when it comes to feints, movement, and distractions in the striking department, Silva has got he causes a lot of problems for his opponents. And most of the reason why he causes a lot of problems is if you bite on any of those feints, you're gonna get popped pretty good. And whether you bite on him or not, he's been putting guys out. So he can get you going one way, he can get his eyes going another, and he can strike in the opposite direction. So that's what's so dangerous about him on the feet. He keeps you guessing in about 2 to 3 different ways. And the distractions that he causes with his lead hand probing and his movement, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I don't think Lopes is skilled enough on the feet to do so. And I don't think he has the wrestling to get this to the ground. So I'm going to go with Silva in this one. And, you know, I still like Diego Lopes. I think he's got a lot of upside. I just think Gene Silva's got just that little bit more, even though there's a lot of height and reach going towards Lopes and he can pop you. But I do think in round one, he could hurt you, maybe round two, but as the fight goes on, I don't think he carries that snap anymore. So and Silva can carry it late into the round, so I'm going to go with Silva.
Yeah, fighting nerds obviously not having a whole lot of success at UFC Paris. Bahalio losing, obviously with Rufi as well. But I think Silva gets him back in the win column here. I do like Lopes, Diego Lopes. Like Carlos said as well, he's very, very skilled. He's very, very well rounded. We saw in the Brian Ortega fight that he implementing very high level grappling and wrestling in that fight. We've seen in the Montserrat Evloev fight that obviously the grappling is there. When it comes to the power as well, he carries a lot of power in his hands. But I think the thing that really hurts him in this fight here is Lopes is very, very hittable. He can be cracked himself. He obviously carries a lot of power early in round one, but once you get him out of round one, like Carlos said, I think a lot of the power does tend to fade away. With Gene Silva, to me, he is an absolute sniper. He is looking to not only take your head off with the perfect shot, but he's looking for openings. He's very, very calculated. And I think that style is difficult for Diego Lopes. When you look at his knockouts, he's really knocking you out in the first round. And then after that, the power fades away. Like I said, whereas with Gene Silva, he's really always live to knock you out at any moment. We saw in the Bryce Mitchell fight, he was able to drop him. He was able to get the ninja choke. Guys look to take him down. He's got good takedown defense. And we saw with the Baghdasaryan fight that, the well-timed strike at any moment can come. And I just think that with this fight here that Lopes is going to, at some point, he's going to pressure forward. He might get frustrated. He might get tired, whether that be from wrestling, whether that be from trying to land the big bomb. He's going to leave himself exposed. And I think Silva's going to capitalize and ultimately find the chin here. I do think that Lopes is tough. He might be able to kind of weather a storm here and make it to the judges' scorecards. But I just don't think that the wrestling's going to be there for him. I think Silva's going to be able to find the mark more often than not. And it's a shame because I do like Diego Lopes, obviously rooting for him against Volkanovski. I did think that he was going to be able to beat Volkanovski, but obviously he wasn't able to get it done. And I think that the sniper here in Gene Silva is going to be able to find the mark here and ultimately get this one done for the Fighting Nerds, get them back on track. And as always, guys, if you're enjoying the content here, hit that like and subscribe button. We've got many videos to come this week. Dog of the Week is going to be out. We've got the best bets for UFC Noche, along with our quick picks video. And before we wrap things up, is there anything, Carlos, that you want to say to the people?
Guys, I hope you're still enjoying the content, and we love getting it out there. So we're working hard at this. If you guys enjoy it, please remember, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yep, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Enjoy UFC Noche. Peace.
Peace.